Good evening, everyone. I am, as you can see, second string, filling in for Jerry Lee tonight who isn't here. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and Mrs. Luton, I would like the record to show that all board members are present, with the exception of the board president, Jerry Lee. And because it is still summertime, we are without adequate help to do the pledge, so I will lead that as well. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we will talk about the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the Tuesday, August 8th, 2017 Board of Education study session agenda? So moved. Thank you, Alina. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's a tie. We'll give it to my neighbor here, Charles. And now would everyone please vote?
Thank you.
Now we'll wait patiently. The motion passes. We're off to a great start. Okay. And now we will have public comments to address agenda items. So do we have any?
We do not.
We do not, so we'll move on to informational reports. I believe we have a report from Ben Hackenworth and Dr. Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I'm here to kind of provide the introduction for choice and transfer tonight, and we just want to remind you, choice and transfer has a long history in Springfield Public Schools, providing unique experiences for kids, ranging from junior ROTC at Hillcrest to Wolf at Bass Pro. And talking to some folks today, we were trying to root it all the way back to when transfer, or maybe school choice. And we actually talked to a Parkview graduate who shall not be named, who said that she thinks you could move almost 50 years ago. So we think we've tracked choice in Springfield Public Schools back about 50 years. Choice and transfer really came out as part of Dr. Jungmann's listening and learning tour. He was affirmed by the community that choice programming and transfer is real positive for Springfield Public Schools, but also challenged by how do we scale it, how do we make it bigger, and provide more experiences for students. So last year he challenged a group to come together and to start having conversations about choice, the barriers to choice, maybe propose some solutions to choice. And we believe this work connects directly to the strategic plan, because it's really about 1.3.11, which is really about partnering with our community and our private businesses about creating these unique experiences. But I also believe it's really rooted in 1.2.9, which is really about providing you program access to underprivileged and underrepresented students for all students. So Dr. Hackenworth has received that charge to pull together a stakeholder team. Tonight he's going to kind of take you on the journey a little bit on the history. He's going to kind of show you the work they've done up to this point, and then kind of show you what our next steps are for the future. So my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hackenworth. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start at the beginning. So it's my pleasure to be here tonight to bring you this update on the work we've been doing around choice and transfer in our system. As Dr. Dawson mentioned in the introduction, the charge that we were given was to study the impact that transfers and choice programs have on Springfield Public Schools. And I think the hope is, as we study that, we'll be able to better measure the effectiveness of these programs, ensure that we can provide equitable access to programs, and as Dr. Dawson said, prepare for the possibility of future expansion down the road. Tonight's update will kind of consist of four sort of high-level areas. One is we'll talk just a little bit about the background of choice in our system, the current choice programming that is identified in our system, a work team update, give you some background to what's been happening over the last 12 months or so, and then what we believe to be our next steps in this work. So the history of choice program, as Dr. Dawson said, is kind of rooted in the fact that we are an open enrollment district. And he was able to trace it back 50 years. It may go back much further than that, and I don't know where we have record of that. But there's been that element of choice in our system for decades. Families and students could transfer from school to school if capacity allowed for a long, long time. In 1984, however, the Phelps Center for Gifted Education came to be. And that seems to be sort of the moment in time when transfer or choice was program specific. It just wasn't school to school. About a decade later, there was a pilot at Central High School for the Middle Year Scholars Program. And then a year later, IB came to be at Central. Lene Lazelle can give you lots more detail in this area. Yeah, but it's really interesting to kind of peel back that onion just a little bit. From that point in time, programs emerged, some came and some went, but it seems like it was about during the 2006 strategic planning process when the whole idea of choice and that term was really reintroduced to our system, or maybe introduced for the first time. And there's actually a school choice research team that was convened at that time to study choice for our system and provide some recommendations to the Board of Education at that time. It's in that report that choice was first defined, and it was really, the definition was more about certain elements that maybe should be present in choice programming. The report established importance of choice programs for Springfield Public Schools. It sort of created our first data set through stakeholder feedback that was generated. And then there was a goal set for program expansion at that time. The goal was that 25% of our student population would be engaged in some sort of choice program by 2019. So we haven't missed that mark yet, but we probably will. Also, there were several recommendations about types of programming that might be considered, 5 to be exact, and one of those centered around the sciences at the 4th or 5th grade level, which Wolf came to be, the expansion of IB, which also has come to be. So some of those targets have been hit, but we still have a little bit of work to do, I think, in that area. This is a slide that shows choice programming that's identified on our website. So if you go to choice on our website, this is what you will see. And while we have been able to expand program options since 2006, again, I don't think we're going to have the participation that was established, or the goal that was established at that time. When you look at this, you will probably see programs that really resonate with you with regard to choice, clearly a choice program. There's probably others that seem a little bit strange to be categorized as choice, and that's one of the things that we've kind of been wrestling with since I've been here the last decade, is what is a choice program, what is not a choice program. And so that's one of those things that we've been working through over the last 12 months. That said, there's a lot to celebrate around choice in our system. As Mike said, it supports our strategic plan, particularly with partnership engagement and experience expansion for kids. Choice has allowed us to promote sustainability by leveraging partnerships with our great community partners. We have lots of examples of that in our system, and particularly with choice. Choice programs have served as incubators for teaching and learning, and that's something we've really been passionate about in recent years, that those small environments in some cases are great opportunities for other teachers to come and learn and to grow their capacity. And those programs receive lots of visitors all the time, and I really believe they've moved our system forward as a whole. Choice has created demand for unique learning opportunities within our community. There has been lots of stakeholder engagement over the years, and each time we go to our stakeholders for feedback, there's typically a few questions around choice. Every time the demand for more choice options has been very high, the level of understanding tends to be a little bit lower. Again, As Mike mentioned, it supports the strategic plan objective 1.2.9, access to programming for all. While we've made progress there, that continues to be an opportunity for improvement as well. So we can celebrate it and remain focused on improving it at the same time. And then in 2013, we were excited that Choice was identified as a blue ribbon in the Community Focus Report. The fact that our community sees it as a driver is really exciting to us and fuels our desire to continue to improve. So as with any program, there are opportunities for improvement or concerns that we want to identify. One has been this lack of a clear definition and criteria. When it's difficult to identify programs or differentiate them, it makes it difficult for us to market them effectively. Additionally, there have been cases of unhealthy competition in our system where programs or schools might be competing for students and pulling students from other schools. That becomes confusing to parents and stakeholders, and we want to try to clean that up. And then it makes it difficult for us to really track the results. Again, if we don't know which program is really a choice program, it's hard to say if we're being as effective as we want to be. And as I mentioned in the slide previously, access to these programs continues to be something that we want to improve and expand. So the work team, again, about 12 months ago, we pulled this team together. It's made up of a wide variety of stakeholders. Folks from our records office. Ann White knows everything there is to know about transfers. Just ask her. But folks from my team, we had principals at the elementary, middle, and high school level. We had IT folks on the team. We had counseling service represented, the communications department. So a pretty wide variety of folks serving on that advisory team.
Are we allowed to ask you questions,
Yes.
Or do you want us to wait till the end?
No, you're welcome to ask me questions.
So that is an impressive list, but there aren't any teachers on it.
Yeah. So the first thing this team did was to go to 200 teachers and have a conversation with them around choice. We used our blended learning mentors, who tend to be very engaged teachers. We stole a chunk of their time, and we conducted focus groups with all 200 of them, broke them out, and had a pretty good conversation about choice.
The people on that list had conversations, or the blended learning people reported to those people?
No,
what they said?
that advisory team, we split up, we developed questions, and we sat down with these 200 in focus groups and talked about choice with them.
Thank you.
We also administered a survey to teachers. Again, we wanted teacher feedback to get us started. 190 participants were engaged in that survey. We also engaged with parents in the Superintendent Advisory Council and PTA Council, administered a survey there. Didn't have a high response rate there, but it was what it was, I guess. And then we also went right to our key stakeholders, our students, and we conducted focus groups, 2 focus groups at each level. I'm talking with elementary students, middle, and high school students. So those conversations, along with some of the historical information we were able to sort of dust off,
And
kind of became the basis of our
Were
work.
these elementary, middle, and high school students who were participating in choice programs?
Not necessarily.
Okay, random, just a random.
Correct. Yep. So the feedback theme was pretty consistent among all the groups. Each stakeholder group indicated the importance and the need for a variety of learning options, unique learning options. We sort of stayed away from the term choice as we did this, but it reemerged as probably the right term to use. Probably the secondary piece of feedback or the theme is that while all the groups appreciated choice and thought it was important in our system, there were varying levels of understanding with regard to programming available and then how to access it. A couple of pieces of feedback that we thought we would share. 89% of teachers report a strong awareness, so almost all knew of choice programming, but only about 32% felt confident in trying to explain it. So we see an obvious gap there. Students, 67%, again, were aware of choice programming, but less than 40% knew how to apply. I recall talking with one focus group and a young lady saying, think I'm in a choice program, but I'm not sure. And she was really serious. And so.
Was she in one?
Yeah,
you
was
can-
she?
Well, I don't know if she was. We didn't go back and find out.
forgot the
The programs are
punchline,
different. You have some programs within a school and school-wide programs, so there was just confusion even there if she was technically in that program. And then about half, or just less than half of our parents understood choice options for their children. They knew of choice, and we should have provided that as well. There's a high awareness that there's choice in our system, but specifically, they had difficulty telling us what those options were for their kids. So using this and using some of the other historical information we had, we generated how might we statements, or sort of broad goals for our work. The first was how might we identify the qualities desired for programs to be considered unique learning experiences. Beyond just a definition, what are those elements and the qualities, and at what standard of excellence should they be present for a program to be considered choice? We know we need to develop a clear, consistent message and processes for accessing unique learning experiences. We know we need to have greater general awareness in our system, with our community, with our staff and parents, because that seemed to be missing as well. And as always, and we knew this early on, we want to continue to find ways to break down barriers to ensure equity and access for all of our students. So what we came up with so far in this work, and I should say this is sort of a marathon project. We do a lot of short sprints, and this has been a longer project, and it kind of continues to be. So I think we're probably about halfway through this work. So this advisory team at sort of a high level has kind of produced these three things so far. Our recommended definition for choice, to try to better articulate what choice is. And I will tell you, it doesn't vary significantly from what they came up with in 2006. I think the big difference is this team also began developing criteria, or those key elements that need to be present, and a way to evaluate how effectively they're being administered in a program. And then finally, the team began to develop an initial choice endorsement process to ensure that there's the highest quality of programming present at all times. And I'll kind of walk through each of those briefly. This is the definition, or the recommended definition, that team came up with. Endorsed SPS choice programs have focused themes, aligned curriculum that provides students access to unique learning opportunities driven by passion, inquiry, and community connections. It took a long time to come up with this, and people really agonized over keywords throughout this definition. But I think the team is proud of what they've come up with so far. We call it recommended because we still think it needs a stamp of approval from some people even closer to the work than that advisory team. And then there's recommended criteria that team began developing. And again, I want to stress this is draft, and we know there's a lot of work to do here. But we believe that programs need to meet a certain standard of excellence with regard to program design, their instructional plan, their connection to the community, and possibly other areas. So how well developed does a program have a mission and vision? Are there established core beliefs in a program? Are there identified student outcomes that are measurable? So on and so forth. So this team believes that this is sort of the teeth behind that definition that we haven't had before, to better establish parameters for what is and is not a choice program, and how we maintain a certain level of excellence.
I have
Yes,
a question. I like particularly the program design. On instructional plan, you stipulate on a recommended basis, right? Blended learning, project-based learning, et cetera. In some ways, are you assuming those are the appropriate means without knowing the end in advance?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
and so I would kind of view these as almost placeholders right now.
Okay.
So that team didn't feel like it was necessarily their work to really flesh this out at this point, but this gives us some indication of what it might look like. And really what the team suggested is a sort of rubric where you can see to what degree is there an established mission and vision, and descriptors that would take you from emerging to distinguished. So a program would know exactly what it takes to reach a certain standard of excellence. So I don't know that these will, I'm certain this won't be where it lands.
So not all choice programs will necessarily be blended learning or
Correct.
PBL or something. They
Correct.
might be, but they may not be.
Yeah, and it may be that these things are present, but you only need to show a certain level of mastery in a certain number of them. So those are all the details that we see as part of our next step. And then finally, we believe there needs to be some sort of endorsement process. The team, again, high level, envisions a sort of multi-year process where a school may have a standard year of support where we're just providing the regular support we would provide any program or school. A year two might be a sort of self-evaluation where they would have a leadership team or a school team or program team that would take that rubric and work through it during the course of that year to make sure that they're achieving at a certain level. And then a final sort of formal endorsement process where we would bring an outside team in to evaluate the program against that rubric, offer recommendations for improvement, provide support, just to ensure that we maintain a certain standard of excellence in those programs. Again, this would be one of those that's very high level right now that will be the bulk of the work next year. So that kind of takes us to our next steps. What we would like to do here is drill down from that advisory team or that work team and establish specialized work teams that would provide that sort of stamp of approval in the definition, that would work through that rubric and fully develop out what that endorsement process would entail. We'll need to go back then and determine which existing programs would be considered choice within this new process, and then evaluate program expansion opportunities. As Mike said, we know choice is good, and we need to continue to provide opportunities. And how do we best do that to make sure we're addressing the right programs? And then finally, we would have to work closely with the communications department. Obviously, knowledge and communication was a gap that we identified, so we want to create a strong communication and marketing plan so that we can better level the playing field, grow the knowledge level, and provide patrons the information they need to access the programs that are available to them. So that's a very quick update to our work, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
So, let me go back to, I know there's been, going back to what all on slide 7 you listed as choice,
Okay.
current choice programming. So I obviously have been a supporter of trying innovative new programming for years, even before I served on the board, and supportive of that. And so I'm excited that we are brave enough to try new things and have unique learning experiences for our students. But I do know that they're, even seeing this on the board docs, choice/transfer. I mean, to me, in my mind, from a language standpoint, these are so different, you know? So help me in terms of, I've got a loaded question, help me in terms of choice is like, well, I live in this district and I want my kid to go to that district and I have transportation to get them to that district, so we're going to transfer and they've got an opening. I mean, that's what I think of when I think of transfer. Is that correct? And then choice to me is completely independent of transfer in my mind. So I guess I'm wondering, is my definition correct, or why are those lumped together in general?
Yeah, so I think yes and no. I mean, you're correct, and I think in most cases when we talk about choice, we're making assumptions that accessing those programs oftentimes involves a transfer from one program or one school to another. That's not always the case. A program may reside in your boundary. Exactly. So that's not always the case, and we know that there are a number of other reasons that students transfer. I don't know, as we kind of scoped our work, we saw a focus on choice specifically as the best place to begin without taking on all of the impacts of transfers, general transfers. The other thing is we needed to do some alignment because it's been a little bit like the Wild West with choice, and there hasn't been a lot of structure around it at times. There were varied application windows and acceptance windows, which provided challenges for those who were trying to
Market it or explain it?
well, one, to market it, yeah, and explain it, but the other is when it came time to forecast FTE and enrollment, if these things were happening at different times, it made it drew out the amount of time it took to kind of put our arms around that. So something I didn't mention here is we ran a sort of small pilot with some of our middle school programs, Scholars, MYP, and READ. They were all on sort of different windows for their application and acceptance process. We were able to work with those principals to actually put them on the same sort of calendar that coincided with our transitional transfer window, so that Shane and Jay and Mike were getting good information at the same time. So part of the idea of transfer is just sort of consolidating all of that and creating a more consistent framework so we can have better information earlier.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if I'm a choice participant, I may need to apply for a transfer, or I may not.
That's correct.
And then I could also be a transfer student and not be in a choice program.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
And all have the same.
I mean, I was like, okay, I'm just making sure. Because you didn't say too much about transfer stuff. This is mainly about the
You're
choice
correct.
presentation.
That's
So then I also know over the last couple of years, maybe, there's been discussion in terms of definition or cultural or language choice. And then I've heard the term magnet and some other different ones. So can you maybe give just a quick, like, where do we stand with how we refer to some of these programs?
Yeah, so
because sometimes the choice, you don't really have a choice. You apply and there's only so many to get that choice. It's not, everybody has a choice. There's only certain grades or, I mean, so just from a language perspective.
So I'll give you.
Where's that conversation?
Yeah, so sort of my perspective on that, or the way that I try to make sense of that, is this choice is this sort of umbrella. And under it, there are a couple different buckets. One that we call those magnet schools. Those are schools that have no boundary. So you're never going to just get to go there because you reside in a certain area of town. So they are true magnets and pull from everywhere. You have some programs that are sort of a school within a school, or a program within a school, Quest. So you might transfer in to access that, or you may just be in that school boundary. You could be in that school boundary and not access Quest. And then you have whole school in some cases. So if you think of PYP or MY, yeah, exactly. You just happen to live there and you're part of it. You didn't transfer there. So I see all of those as sort of buckets of choice in our system, or variations
No,
of
that
it.
visual makes sense. Do we have that visual somewhere? Like that umbrella and then those?
I have that, just so I can make sense of it. But I think that's the sort of thing, as we continue this work, that's the sort of, when we talk about our marketing efforts and how we communicate, I think you'll see all of that improve to try to provide that sort of clarity to the community and our internal stakeholders as well.
And we've, moved quickly and grown things and tried things, and so we've got the growing pains to get that information back to admin staff to make those staff changes, which is just totally practical. And then a cultural language thing to make sure we know, when you say this, is this what it means? And then we've also got the marketing communication piece and stuff like that. So, are there any national benchmarks? I mean, like, are there other people in the nation doing what we're doing that we can learn from?
There are, and that's something that I mentioned today to either Dr. Jungman or Dr. Dawson or both, as I bugged them, that in 2006, there's a lot of choice programs or specialty, they may have different names out there, and one of the things they did in 06 is they visited several of those across the country to get, to learn from and to network with, and that may be something that we want to revisit again as we continue to think about how we might expand our footprint. But I don't know as far as benchmarking, because the programs are so unique in some cases, but there's certainly lots of great examples out there of these sorts of programs.
You mentioned equity early on, and I'd like to see you come back to it. I might recommend that you add a fourth among your next steps here, and that is to make sure that all students in the district have equitable access. I mean, in an ideal world, just because a student is interested and it would be good for him or her, and he or she would like to do it, they would be able to do it. The world in which we live, that's not the case.
Correct.
And I would really, because I'm very supportive of this, I don't really like the language of choice because it's so caught up in a really terrible national discourse about school choice, et cetera. But The thing that I think gives me a little bit of concern is to make sure that we don't create additional sort of inequities in spite of ourselves. Because in some cases, it may be transportation. Simply not having transportation to one of these choice sites or unique learning experience sites that would exclude someone, a young boy, young girl, who might otherwise just be precisely the right one. So in some ways, the devil's in the details, or the equity is in the details in this
Yeah,
instance.
I agree, and I didn't really go there during this presentation, but one of the things that team talked about was, so you're an endorsed choice program, so what? And some of the things that team had talked about was, so you then have access to the centralized marketing that they haven't had in the past, so we can help them communicate and get the word out. Another was resource allocation. So I'm endorsed. Does that mean I'm allocated a resource to maintain my program? And then transportation. I mean, that was a part of that discussion. And we know that's a big thing to tackle, but that team is focused on that with regard to that equity piece. So that wasn't lost on them at all. I think what it was with these first steps, and then let's go there. And I think those are the sort of things we'll probably bring you a year from now is, here's what we would recommend, or we think we should consider as we move forward and try to improve programming and access.
Denise has some questions.
Yeah, and I think I'll just kind of go back to the first, what Charles had to say, and I think that Bruce and I, being the two senior members of this board, since Jerry's not on this, we've had this discussion about the choice programs, that some are non-transportation specific and some are transportation required. And so we've always had that conversation about how choice are they if the students intending require a parent that can transport them to that site. And I know that's something that in the past we've looked at what it costs to transport more students if they chose and were accepted into this program. So that kind of goes on what Charles is saying is we don't want to lose track of that. It's very important that all children have an opportunity if they really choose to take part in this program that they have access to it. And I know we've heard some stories in the past about a student that was able to go to Wolf because she got up every morning, her dad walked her to the bus, to the bus stop, she got on the bus and got there. But that's a bit extreme. We want to make it a little bit easier for some of our kids. So I think that's really critical, and I hope they continue that conversation. And I hope by 2017 have some real answers of how to go about helping those students. So that was one. And then when I'm looking at this list, there are some that are, you know, that the students, it takes place in their school. So they're good. They don't have public transportation, I guess. And the other thing that I might mention that I would like to see, and that is in your upcoming, I think toward the end, you mentioned establish specialized work teams. And I don't know board members to speak up to, but I would really like to see some classroom teachers.
There would
on
be.
those work teams, because first of all, this is really specific to them, that they're establishing, finalizing new choice definition, rubric endorsement processes. There are folks out there that can get the message to the parents. Right? So I'd really like to see that, and I think that, you know, I remember back in the days trying to get teachers to serve on committees is not the easiest thing, because they're very busy in the classroom. It's drive across town after school and they're trying to finish up their work day. But you know, we have we have one teacher a year, and we have 4 finalists. So there's 5 teachers, I would think, that is kind of it's elementary, middle, and high school. There'd be 5 great teachers to draw on to serve on some of these committees. That would just be a suggestion I think would be important.
Thank you.
Do you have something?
Yeah, well, since I've been here, since this started.
I'm pretty sure you predated the choice conversation, but go
He
ahead.
was here at the beginning.
I can tell you our idea at the beginning was not what it is now. That the WOOF program was, and we just it never happened until this last year. That whether we're going to take 50 kids and we're going to do a different way of learning, and we're going to measure that somehow and find out certain things are better than what we have in the regular school,
And we would be able to take some of those things and put them so that every child has them and not just has them for 1 year. Not just, we're going to dump you there for 1 year. You didn't have anything like that before, you'll not have anything after, but great for you, 50. But it never seemed to happen. We just kept doing that, and the 50 people were very excited until last year. And then you took some students from Zone 1 and said, oh, that took a long time. And I can't answer why.
The watershed thing, or the
Camp Wakanda, the watershed was another example.
Experiences which were very similar, so that to me, then the choice program just isn't about where you are. We're actually taking the things that are working and doing what you did with those experiences out to every child, so we don't have transportation issues. We don't have some of those issues that we created, that we're now taking the best things that work, but we got to measure those and make sure they work. But we knew kids were excited about it, we knew parents were excited about it, so I still am not sure that, I know in a public school system, we need to offer, for a better term, choice within the system, or people will find those choices outside the system. And so that's why we have this big list. But with 25,000 students, to me, one of the crucial points is, are they really doing better? Is there something we can identify so that they don't have to go someplace else to get it? We can incorporate that into all of the learning environments. And I still think that's a crucial part of choice, for a better term, programs. That to me is really the crucial part of the program, even bigger than anything else. Because I'm not sure if choice is a social status, and that's okay. If they feel better because they're in that program and learn more, fine with me. Whatever reason they happen to be there. But I think unless we really measure the learning and say we could take portions of this back to every child at every level in every school, and nobody has to go anyplace except their neighborhood school if they want to, because that's what they want to do. So I think we finally have done that. I mean, how long did that take?
It's 10 years.
I stayed on the board.
Finally got
No,
to
but
see it.
it really, to me, was the crucial part of developing these programs. Kids, we know kids learn differently. We know all those things. Then we didn't say, boy, here's a real nugget of learning, and we can take that back to every child, and we can do it at a certain level in second, third, fourth, fifth grade. And now, all of a sudden, it's, and there's still an important, that to me is the most important role of all of those programs. And if we don't do that, then we've served some kids, but not the number that we could. And we then have created some of the issues that we may try to solve that we don't even have to solve.
That's what
We
we're
don't have to solve that.
really trying to figure out. How do you incubate the best experiences and scale those to everyone? And then that's one side of the kind of the magnet side of the work. And then you have the choice program, which gives you around your passion, around your interest, around your future potentially. But it's really, we've got to do both of those things. And I think we're excited that we did that last year. We're continuing those programs, and we actually have one more that's on the horizon and it will be our first attempt at a full grade scale, right? Those were Zone 1 scales of experiences, and this will be our first attempt at a full grade scale experience in the system. But it's still in the works, and I've got some exciting partners that will be part of that. But to your point, we want the incubators to move that way for all kids, so you don't have to be in this, or we have to worry. Last thing we want to do is transport 25,000 kids crisscrossing across the community, right,
Passing each other
on the bus.
road.
That seems like a very inefficient way to do the work. right?
However long
So-
that's right.
But we do want to allow for equal access to some of the choice opportunities that are well designed for our community and meet our community and parents' needs. So that's the delicate work that we're trying to figure out how to maneuver our way through, so.
And I think we'll be back in September to talk about it a little bit more, but Explore is another example of how we've taken the things we've learned in these choice programs and said, what are the best elements and how do we put it into everyday programming? And that is taking that idea of student experiences to scale, tied to the curriculum, high impact experiences. So it's happening there. We're working to scale it through student experiences during the regular year. And again, I think there's a place for this piece of it as well. We need to revisit it and ensure it's high quality.
So I'm very supportive of all the things I've heard tonight. This isn't our first conversation about it. I agree with the things Bruce just said. I have been resistant to calling this choice. I remain resistant because I have one more thing to say. Whenever we talk about access issues, we tend to focus on transportation. I am not the only person in the room who has tremendous access to parents who have chosen choice programs. And I actually do think it has become too much of a social symbol, too much of a climbing thing. So when we consider how to broaden access to this, I hope we will think beyond transportation, because it needs to become like Explore was. It became normal in really short order, but that's because of how you marketed it. And I want to be careful that we do not just consider this about transportation, and we consider this about intending for the best that we have in this district to be available to everyone. And we have got to do some things differently if we mean that. And I would love it if we changed the name, because I do so hate it. But if you can't think of something better, can we at least market it differently so when we aren't just giving lip service and we aren't just providing more busing, because that is not what the issue is here. And I've been watching my friends, and my friends' kids have had a blast. And yay, for those 50, right? That's not what we're about here. We are about making this better for 25,000, and we just have got to, I love how you are scaling this out, but we have got to think about marketing the way you have with Explore.
And actually, to sort of build on that, I think the worst situation is that a kid or his or her parents doesn't think that it's right for him or her.
And that's-
And if it's choice, it's like, well, maybe it's not really for me, it's for them.
Right.
However them might be defined.
That's what I
That's even worse than not having transportation, I think. That's self-imposed limit.
I think that's more of the issue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well aware of that, and that's, as you've seen, everything that we've built recently around how we market that, it is.
Yes, you're
designed
making it
for
better,
that,
and I
right?
just
So
want you to do it
think
here
of
too.
Club Encore, where we're going with that, and who it's targeting, and it's for all kids that need that, and then Explore and those pieces. So we are
You're
well
doing it.
aware of that, and as that's part of the work, is trying to figure out how to deliver that.
I like
in this
preaching to the choir.
Really complex thing that's birthed and did change different forms multiple times over the decade plus. So,
Well, and I think that these choice programs are probably in place because of a small group of passionate people who really wanted to do this thing, and that there was a small group of passionate followers, parents, children, who wanted to do this thing too. But it seems to me that if we're going to endorse such initiatives, then we need to get something back, and that's what we need to get back for all 25,000 in the district, and for our teachers, is that people engaged in choice programs, teachers, administrators, they have a responsibility back to the district to bring the learning, the innovation back into the district, so that choice is not just an escape, but that it is an asset to the district. And anecdotally, there are times when I think choice is an escape from the district, but you're still in the district. And that doesn't help anyone.
I think the return on the investment is primarily to the district, but it's also to the community.
Yeah.
Do we do any pre or post tests of any type of measures on our
Yeah.
students?
Don't you remember they showed us those people who had gone to Wolf and then gone back in, and they were doing really, I remember when you showed it to us recently.
What were the tools that we used?
We'd be using the same
It's the same
assessment tools. I mean,
Yeah,
we-
I ready, I see.
Well, I mean, that's feedback, but we're talking about student achievement data. We'd still be using iReady test,
They just
pre and post test. We'd be
focused
using
it on
MAP
people.
scores. So we'd still be using the same academic metrics that we do in every other student. They still take all of those same assessments.
And that's part of Amy's work in analytics, is to try to create those filters so that we can see that pattern
Yeah,
and what's
we
working.
really haven't established what are the other outcomes, and that's kind of the clarity of this, is what is the real outcome of Health Sciences Academy? Is it just an academic metric, or should we be monitoring these things? And those really weren't established as those were built out. So we can figure out what are the other measures that we can assess it against, set those up ahead of time, so then we can give them feedback of whether or not you're meeting that. Really, the only metrics we're using right now is a little bit of parent satisfaction. Do we still have people that enroll, right? And we do, and we have more than we have seats for in just about every one of those programs. And then, how do we do academic?
But as someone who talks out of both sides of her mouth, I usually hate all of that kind of testing stuff, but you have to compare them to the same set of criteria, or you're not going to be able to evaluate it. So I have to say, in this case, I was glad you all presented that, I forget if it was a year ago or something, where I could see that those kids were performing the same as their students who had not gone for a year somewhere else. I think we have to continue in this instance. We have to.
So more work to be done. I wanted to give you an update, see if you had any feedback on the direction, but I think we have great feedback and captured those messages tonight, and the team will continue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, we will move on to preliminary contracts, agreements, and change orders. Ms. Embry?
Really is. Yes, now.
And obviously, it's going to be even more exciting than that was. Well, I don't
you
want to
know
tell
it.
you to call it something different.
Yes, we could come up with a more
You
catchy
may call it
name.
contracts,
Yes.
agreements.
So I believe we have 22 separate items posted for your first read consideration. We'll be back with these August 22nd and seek approval. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you may direct those my way and I'll get answers for you or connect you with others. We did have one last-minute ad, and it's actually the MOU for Missouri Department of Social Services, the Jobs for America's Graduates program. That's actually a revenue MOU, but it does exceed that 15,000 threshold, so we posted that for you. And it is a continuation of a program that originated in FY16. So we'll be reimbursed up to $50,000 for actual incurred allowable expenditures that support nonprofit and employment programming for at-risk young people is the design of that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those tonight. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea how many books are in the book, library books bids?
I do not know. That is an excellent question, and I have a feeling if I phoned a friend in the room right now, there might not be an answer, Dr. Dawson. Would that be correct?
We're passing
The libraries over there.
Do you know?
But I don't think.
So that covers the allocations that are set at the building level. And so that's a blanket that then every building has an allocation that is used throughout the year. So,
Yes.
I'm sure we can pull the number of
We can pull the
books that
data.
were purchased last year. It's kind of just a holdover.
So the answer to your question is no, we don't know tonight.
But these,
But we
these
can
are,
get it.
these are library books with binders. They don't have,
Real
they don't
books.
have switches on them.
They are real books, you bet. That is correct. We still do things old school way as well. It's a blended approach, definitely. But we'll get that answer for you on perhaps what our data point was for this.
I've said my
last year.
piece.
You've said your piece, you don't need to know exactly.
I really just wanted to talk about paper books.
Paper
Yeah.
It
books.
feels better now.
That
I
you
just
hold in the
wanted-
hand.
I- again-
I still like real
Oh,
books.
I like it
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
We're all
I just want it to be spoken at the table that we are getting books.
Yes.
I am glad you pointed it out. I too noticed it when I read through this. I'm like, ooh, books.
Yeah, I want, just,
$344,368
It's
worth.
more to his point that some people accuse us of not having any paper books, and look at us.
books in libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Anybody else have a question?
And I thought you would be commenting about some of our failing HVAC units that we are having to bid.
Those
replacement
are
for.
aging out.
That's how that
Yeah,
works.
that's just, that's
Yes, they are.
deferred maintenance that we are working to take care of.
Yes.
You got it.
Okay. All right.
Let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, we have Section 5, it's board policy. We have a wellness policy on first read with nutritional guidelines and a conflict of interest first read.
Yeah, so ADF is just an update from MSBA that's been reviewed and by administration, and then BBFA is a required one that has conflict of interest that we have to approve regularly. So those are first read. Let us know if you have any questions between now and next week.
Okay, and now we'll move on to new business. Carol will come back.
Couple of items.
So this is a preliminary conversation to remind you that every year we set the tax rate in the month of August. The tax rate needs to be set prior to September 1, and we go through a process that is provided to us by the state auditor's office, where we go online and actually fill out their forms using the data that's provided to us by Greene County. So what I would highlight for you this evening is, aside from the fact that we will conduct the tax rate hearing August 22nd prior to the start of the regular meeting, I can share with you that the preliminary information indicates that we're just under 4% for our increase on assessed valuation this year. But recall that the Consumer Price Index sets a cap at 2.1% for us this year. So all of that will be factored in as we look at the data and calculate the levy. The Missouri statute that applies in this situation is 67.110, if you care to look at it. And our board policy is DC2. And basically, it covers the process that's required. And that includes that we post the information prior to the tax rate hearing, which requires a 7-day posting, at least 7 days. And we post that in 3 public places as required by statute and board policy. So that's the long and the short of it. I will be providing you with the information, and it will be posted on board docs prior to the tax rate hearing in 2 weeks. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So we'll kick off the meeting that night.
Yes, with the tax rate hearing.
Are we required to publish that in the paper?
No, we are not. There are options, and that's per statute. Okay.
And then I think you're going to go on to the easement issue with
I
Kickapoo
am.
on 6.02, if
I'm
you would.
prepared. I am prepared. So what you need to understand about this is that these are all relative to the widening of Primrose. So these are required documents. These have been vetted by our attorney to ensure appropriateness. And the motion ultimately that would need to be approved at the August 22nd meeting needs to include the verbiage for each of those. So it will be a little bit lengthy. The right-of-way easement, temporary construction easement, drainage easement, sanitary sewer easement. That would be the information provided. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to take them. I would not necessarily know anything specific to it. Yes?
I'm full of questions tonight for you, Carol.
Okay, great.
Is the reason why this is a board issue is because we're actually transferring property?
Yes, and actually, we must shift the concession stand, that type of thing. It's all relative to that, and they need to have the ownership of that property.
So this is a real estate transaction?
It actually
essentially,
is,
and
yes.
that's why we're...
And that's why it requires actual board motion authorization.
This will take us into a new level of the nerdosphere, but I'm very pleased to see the Oxford comma is used.
You're going to start a fight.
What are you talking about?
After drainage. I'm very
Oh, yes. That would be my fault.
Fault?
My fault. Yes.
See, there, I told you it was going to escalate into a fight.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Okay,
I
so-
find that some of the advice I give my kids on their research papers, it's
not-
totally irrelevant. My daughter got graded down for something
Here we
we've
go.
been doing our whole life.
Here we go.
This is the advice I
Again,
give on everything.
as
It's
Denise would
irrelevant.
say, we're old.
Okay, so
Thank you for the update.
if you
That's
have any
great.
questions during the interim leading up to the August 22nd meeting, certainly give me a call and I'll seek answers for you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so next would be unfinished business, and I do not see that we have any unfinished business, which means we go to 8 public comments to address non-agenda items. And we do have a friend here tonight who wishes to speak with us, and that is Francine Pratt. What else? I have to, give me a second here, Francine, please. The Board of Education will allow comments on topics not related to the printed agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the president or his proxy if he's out of state. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. That said,
For this reason, I will read my statement so I can stay within the 3 minutes. My name is Francine Pratt, and I am the Prosper Springfield Director for the Springfield community. My position is charged with reducing poverty by 5% by 2025 and increasing post-secondary attainment to 60% of the Springfield population as one of our community education goals. Both goals are intertwined with the school district, and I applaud Dr. Jungman, the board, and the 3,500 teachers and staff for preparing our students today for their dreams and aspirations of tomorrow. The first few years living in Springfield, I only saw things through one set of lens, a very privileged life because of my father's work. I attended the Good Morning Springfield last week, and I heard the Kilties perform, and I realized that because of several issues in Springfield, I needed to look at things from a different set of lens. I realized when the Kilties were performing and they came through the door, it was a breathtaking experience because the Kilties were the first all-female drum corps in the United States, formed right here in Springfield in 1922. Dr. Jungman, as you spoke and started with the 150-year review, my emotions went up and down, because I know what the school district has been doing under your leadership. Even though change can be scary, creating a learning experience that is engaging, relevant, and personal is a huge shift in policy. Keeping traditional with innovation to teach a child where they are, and one of the best ways to address the achievement gap without pointing fingers or singling out an individual child because they receive free or reduced lunch or because of their ethnicity or race. The emotion started going down a little bit when you talked about 1867 because African Americans were not allowed at Springfield High School, now known as Central High School. From 1884 to 1954, African American students could only attend Lincoln High School. Emotions went up because I had the privilege of having lunch with the Lincoln High School teacher who actually turned 92. And moved back to Springfield about 2 months ago. When you spoke of the future, my heart filled with excitement as I looked around the lunchroom at Central. I was looking at the flags that represented the diversity, not only at Central High School, but the 20% of the 25,000 students that are in this district. I wanted to say thank you to you, the board, and the teachers, and the faculty, and the staff before the school year started. I applaud you, Dr. Jungman, board members, faculty, and staff, for your willingness to use different approaches. The students of today are the future workers of tomorrow, and those workers will reflect that diversity that exists in Springfield Public Schools today. These students are from families that qualify for free and reduced lunch. They represent the flags that were in Central, and they're students from the inner city and rural areas. Thank you for looking at our students through a different set of lens and continuing to design learning with the mix of tradition and engaging focus for every learner every day. Thank you.
thank you. All right, so we are on 9. We We are on 9.01. Dr. Dawson for a strategic discussion.
Thank you, Mrs. Pratt. Really appreciate your comments there, because I think it drives directly to our strategic plan and what we're doing. And that's what I get the privilege of doing tonight, is providing an update on Goal 1 within our strategic plan. So thank you very much for that recognition. We appreciate that. Let me back up here. So I am, if you recall, this is kind of our second attempt at this. We try to do a year, end of the year report for each of these goals. So this will be our kind of our pattern for the next several months, with each goal coming up and giving you a kind of a high level summary of where we're at and what we've been doing. And then in the spring, we kind of do a mid-year report where we bring you specific strategies, work teams, and they give you an update on some of those pieces. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to a number of people who have helped make this possible. I have the privilege to tell the story tonight, but it's really Dr. Harold who has been championing these 4 strategies all this last year. Jim Farrell, who's integral in the school safety of our school district. Jean Graybill, who's back here, who does health, hygiene, hunger when she sleeps, I think. This is her passion, and so I get to tell part of her story tonight. Rhonda Mammon, who is embedded into our community for mental health and helping the social and emotional needs of our kids. So I tell their story tonight and thank them in advance for what they've done. And I would also encourage you, as we have done in the past, just ask questions throughout this, and I'll do my best to answer them. If not, I'll yield to some of my friends, or we'll write those questions down and get back to you at a later date. So the very first one I'm going to talk about is really 1.1.1, which is really establishing a district-level emergency operations management plan. And that has really been the work of Dr. Harold and his team in conjunction with the Greene County Emergency Management System, and they have really made that happen. That is a completed task for this particular strategy. We're very thankful for that partnership and for the work they've done. We've have that 100% up there, and then we've also, on the highlight side, we would say 50 of our members from the community attended emergency management training. I think Mr. Lee was also part of that this last year, learning, taking it to another level of community disaster preparedness. So we're thankful for that particular piece. One of those highlights in here is that establishment of that plan, but then the second one was to start to initiate support systems for that plan. So we've designated some time out for officers to be with certain schools to help shepherd their site plans into the district plan, making sure there's alignment there. And that's happened, and I'm going to show you a photo in just a moment. And then the next step really is to really dissolve this part and now really combine it with 1.12, which is making sure we have a district plan, site plans, training, resources, and all of the above in one spot. Now, we had that initial conversation with Dr. Harold about, hey, should these be separate? Should these be the beginning when we were initiating the strategic plan? And we really felt like we needed those to be separate to make sure they had the right amount of resource and attention. And now the time is to really fold those together. This is just a picture of them executing a relocation drill at Central High School. This is taking the whole student body and relocating them to O'Reilly Student Center. And this would be in a case of an emergency situation where we'd have to relocate and reunite families. And this was done very, very well with the support of our Springfield Police, the Drury University, O'Reilly Center staff, and all the Central folks. So a great, great accomplishment. This was, though they walked over, this is a relocation. If there was a major fire inside of Central High School, we had to relocate the whole student body and then reunify folks with families and patrons, guardians. We would do it out of this particular shelter. Think about if it was January and it was 10 degrees. You don't just go outside for a fire. You have to relocate the whole student body. This is sheltered relocation.
And I will say, they were the most orderly people walking across campus I have ever seen.
Well, we will take note of that. Thank you. I will attribute that to Dr. Harold's leadership. The second strategy is really about building level emergency preparedness. And we are proud to say we have 100% of those safety plans, public and the restricted versions, ready to go. We've also identified a lead in every building, and those leads then also have an emergency management team in every building. Now, what we need to do is probably do some work around training, and you'll see that in just a minute. I compliment Jean and her staff who do have trained 400 staff members in CPR and first aid this last year, and you'll see context to that in just a moment. And then I also want to thank our school police and our building leaders who conduct over 900 emergency drills a year, and you'll see some of that data in just a moment also. Major accomplishments here, I would say, one, we have an RFP still in the process for AEDs, and Jean is working with that and with our purchasing and Ms. Embry to make that happen for our school district. Our principals are required to do 19 drills a year. I actually asked about the 10 fire drills this last week with school police, who contacted fire marshal, and it's actually by ordinance that we have to do 10 of these a year. So we tried to figure out if we could reorder those a little bit. You'll see a little bit later, I believe, that we had 77% of those with school police present. That's a huge increase, showing the support and the wraparound services. We had, I think it's a little bit later in here, a number of sites that had, 77 had 17 of the 19 drills complete, and 52% of schools did all 19. And that's an area of improvement that we see in the future, is really streamlining some sort of progress monitoring for the drills. I think I would also applaud Dr. Harold and Jim Farrell here. We have done really 2 rotations. One, we're going to do an audit rotation with Greene County to do building, to do grounds, to do traffic, and every 3 years they'll have a full on-site safety audit of their building, and that's going to create recommendations for those sites.
When you say with Greene County, who specifically do you?
Office of Emergency Management.
Yes.
That's what I figured,
Yep.
but I wanted to thank you.
Samantha?
Samantha Peterson.
Yeah.
Yes,
She's
and
a-
Lindsay Murray.
Yeah, thank you. And then the other one is a 3-year rotation on procedures for active shooter. Now, we would do intruder drills every single year, but every 3 years they would get specialized training with school police on active shooter drill. Then the other part was an increased access to elementary with our school police officers.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yep.
The 10 fire drills, so is that's mandated
City ordinance.
city ordinance during the traditional calendar or during a year, like?
Well, I would assume that's during the academic year, but it could be during the,
I'm thinking, can we spread that out during Explore? That just seems like.
it is a lot, and that's why you don't have as many people probably reaching that, because it's also instructional time. You know, so you're trying to balance that. And that's why I asked Jim Farrell to look into it for me, because I said, if we're going to move, we're going to move on fire drills. You know, we're going to do something different there, because I don't want to do away earthquake or intruder or inclement weather. But that's an ordinance we have to stick with. So we just
should
need to
read
figure out
it
a better way to help support our principals as they do that work.
And see what it says. We need to read it and see what it says and see what.
Yeah.
Because we can lobby. We need to.
We're in charge.
I would like
Major
to know what's
steps
the norm.
moving forward will be training. I really want to see how they move a curriculum forward with training our leads in some of these emergency management kind of drills and procedures, making sure we're doing something there. Very similar to what we do with blended learning mentors. We pull out these great teachers, we give them a very specialized training, they go back into the classroom and then help become the conduit of information. I see that same model for emergency leads at the building. One, we got to review drill expectations and conduct some sort of a progress monitoring. And then one of our goals here is to really do some scheduled tabletop exercises with buildings, and we haven't really done that, so that'll be part of our next steps for sure. Here you can just see the drill information on how many number of drills were conducted over the whole year. A little bit down from last year, but relatively flat. What I would bring your attention to is the increase with almost by 300 of drills with school police present, so we appreciate their support.
And that's all combined.
That's all combined, that's the whole district. This is just a rotation of what you would see as our procedures for active shooter drill, that we have put them on a rotation. Actually saw an email go out today from Jim Farrell indicating to these principals, hey, sign up, it's a 1-hour training as you start planning out your professional development for the year, and we're here to support you. So that's a 3-year rotation, and we'll make sure, and that's also, I believe, in policy. And then I would just applaud Jean here again. We have a number of our staff already certified in CPR and first aid, and this is offered monthly, free of charge to staff. They put this on regularly to encourage staff members to be trained and certified. This third one is really about health, hunger, hygiene. And I believe it's the removing of the barriers. And they do this in so many ways. We do it with free vaccination shots. We do it with school pantries. We do it with mobile food bank. We do it with the tooth truck. We do it with backpack program. We do it with Vision Clinic, Jordan Valley. I mean, there's so many partners who help us do this and remove barriers. This is not us lifting this, but partnering with and linking arms with so many people. And I have to thank all of our community partners. Just a couple of highlights here is that our PTA clothing bank, which is over at Studi Alternative High School, only open 1 or 2 days a week, 1 day a week, I believe. And you can see that they've distributed 28,000 pieces of clothing and shoes during their 40 days of operation. That's significant. I also want to thank Care to Learn, we asked Care to Learn to provide this figure, over $140,000 of some sort of service. That could be a voucher or direct service for health, hunger, and hygiene.
In what time frame?
And that last academic year. We believe about $100,000 of that was directly through our school nurses. So they go through school nurses bring over that, and that quickly exchange gets it to right into the hands of the kids and who needs it. I would just some of the highlights here, and you can see this last year we had about $1.1 million of services for about 2,000 students with the tooth truck and Vision Clinic in Jordan Valley, and we couldn't do this work without them. I highlight this one specific partner in the Ozark Food Harvest where we have delivered over 33,000 weekend backpacks for students in need. Now, I say that's just one partner, right? Because we know there's still many other people who pack some stuff and they've got a long relationship with a school, there's a church, or there's something of that nature. But this one partner has done over 33,000 backpacks this last year. I'm really excited, and I know Gene is a huge champion of our farm to school program, and we've doubled the number of community gardens from 11 to 22. And then you can see the number of just visits. Look at the health services school nurse visits is 325,000 kids and registered pieces there. We have some work to do in this area, and I see it as really two pieces. One is still trying to streamline and coordinate partners to get into the right buckets of what we need and trying to get that, and Marty and Gene do a great job. Now, we have some that have really established relationships, and we want to honor that at the same time, but we're also trying to get people to say, how can your impact affect a lot of people? Because we have a lot of people going to Weller right now with shoes and food, and we'll do this for your Pride Den or whatever they have going on there. But we really have need all over the district. So how do you get a donor to say, hey, you're right, we'll put it in for the big bucket and then distribute it out? And that's a lot of hard work. So we've done a really good job with partners. Our next group would really be about faith-based groups. And I know Dr. Jungman and Ms. Moore have already met with them and tried to encourage that kind of behavior. The other one is Care to Learn is establishing a mobile food or clothing bank, and we're going to see how that goes off this next year.
Can I stop you just a second?
Yep.
So I'm a little confused here because I have a slideshow that has some specific, it's coming up, the tooth truck.
Yep,
You're going to talk about it?
Yep.
Okay, I'll wait.
I'm on it. Let's talk about the tooth truck. It's right here.
I can't find.
You two work that out.
Nice setup. Dr. Fraser, nice setup. So this is the tooth truck. This is the number of appointments and the number of students served. So when you look at the far right column, you'll see that we've had about 3,100 appointments in that full column of students in 44 schools who were eligible for the tooth truck, and serving just over 1,000 students there.
That's fantastic. Do we look at, or do we have information on how young the students are when they first have that opportunity? Because based on my prior job, it feels like to me that intervention earlier would be better.
Better.
What is that not true about?
Right.
But when is the average age of first exposure?
Gene?
So they start in preschool here, and the other cool thing that the RMHC is doing with our students is in our preschool programs and in our kindergarten classrooms, they have a toothbrushing program, so then they have measurements of those kids and looking at their oral health, and they brush their teeth every day as part of coming to school. It's you have your breakfast in the classroom and you brush your teeth. So, and then they provide the toothbrush and the toothpaste for the kids. So they've collected data to show that yes, their overall health is improved. And the cool thing about working with Ronald McDonald House and the Two Truck is that we've decreased the red flag, the community flag for oral health for young children, and it's because they go directly to the school site and they complete that treatment plan. So what would normally take months and years to do a treatment plan, they stay at that school and complete that plan for that student. So it's phenomenal what RMHC has been doing.
That's excellent, thank you.
Denise?
So why I wanted to discuss this was I happened to be visiting a school, and as I was leaving that school, I walked out and there was a tooth truck. So I took some time to knock on the door, go in the truck. I got to meet Dr. Sarah.
Yes.
Dr. Sarah still with us, and this was a phenomenal young dentist that just took this job temporary, but explained to me that after spending some time, she found this is where she needed to be. And so I think she's been 8 years,
Yeah.
or whatever. But anyway, I got the opportunity to see a little kindergartner as she was leaving that just had a complete mouthful of beautiful little fillings, and she was happy to show those to me. She also left with a backpack that had every kind of dental hygiene thing that you could want in it, and she had not seen a dentist prior to her opportunity to go to the tooth truck, and she also had an identical twin that was getting ready to come right after her to get her full treatment. And I was so impressed, first of all, with the dedicated staff. Just 2 people on a truck. One's the driver. Sometimes Dr. Sarah said she has to drive, but then the time they spend at our schools. And this is something that I don't think our community understands, that this is also an additional thing that our school district, along with this partnership, we're serving so many of the needs of students that are just not happening for them at home. I mean, and if any of you have a chance to go to the tooth truck, it is amazing. And they will tell you some stories that will break your heart, but yet will make you very proud of what our schools are doing for our kids. But I just had to mention something about the tooth truck, and it also inspires you to want to go write a check as well.
Thank you very
Last
much.
year, I just have to say, that they went to high schools for the first time.
They did.
And they had a high school student who had a fractured front tooth since she was little. And they repaired that tooth, and she said, "Oh, I can smile for my prom picture." Who else? I mean, it changed her life.
Gene, you're gonna make us cry now.
It's true
They
that.
told me
It's
that.
just phenomenal what they do.
Yeah. Well, we thank the nurses who link those services, right? I mean, it wouldn't happen without dedicated personnel in the building to link those kids to these services. This is just their impact for the tooth truck. This last year was a little over $900,000. And for the last 5 years, it's over $3 million of services provided for our students.
Can you explain the difference between how you're defining appointments versus students served on those?
So the whole column is appointments, that's the green, all the way up, and then students served would be the blue. So we had about 1,000 students served within, yeah, could have gone 3 times, that's right.
Appointments, 1,000 kids served.
Yeah.
There
I'm glad you-
are a series of
Appointments for that treatment plan, that's right.
Gotcha, thank you.
This is now just some data around the backpack program where you can see training again using that same format. We had about 33,000 backpacks go out into the system on weekends, serving a little over 2,000 students. Now, again, that's Ozark Food Harvest. That doesn't include our school pantries. That doesn't include our mobile food pantries, where I've been able to see those firsthand over at JFK Stadium, and the car line was 100 cars deep with people loading groceries right into people's cars. So this is just one snapshot of that great service to trying to help kids with and families with hunger insecurity issues. This would also show you the number of schools that we continue to increase. You know, over the last 5 years, we were close to 19 schools, and now we're close to 44 schools who have a backpack program. The need is still there. This would be just the value of the food that comes up through that backpack program. Again, right around $350,000 for the year, but over the last 5 years, it's about $1.5 million in the value of food being sent home to students and families. So the question that really comes out is, okay, is any of this working? So are we getting kids in school more? Are we decreasing discipline or any of that nature? So I asked Amy to run data for me in about 45 different ways. And that really, it just boils down to when the state has a target of 90% of your students being at school 90% of the time. This is our average for K-12 for the last 3 years. So we have about, this last year, we didn't see what the impact that we want to see, right? So we were at 86%. This year we're at 83.6% of our kids there 90% of the time. That's a lot of kids still in attendance. But I can't tell you that we have less kids less hungry. We have kids who are probably not in pain. Maybe kids who have a better self-esteem because they were able to take their prom picture. So there are so many unquantifiable variables, but I will continue to monitor attendance and discipline to see if we can continue to evaluate and see if we're making an impact in this area. The last one I have for you tonight is really around mental health, and it says removing barriers, but you know, this is really, to me, as I've read this and I've looked at it and I've talked to Rhonda, this is really about creating supports to make sure that we have access to services for social and emotional health. It's not really about removing barriers. This is about linking arms with community partners, in my opinion. So a couple of really great successes is one, for the first time, we've applied for the McKinney-Vento Homeless Grant out of the DESE. It's $150,000 annually. Over the next 3 years, it'll be $450,000 into our system. We are going to use that to employ some case managers. So if you remember Lynn coming to you maybe a year ago or so and talking about the 1,700 students who are qualified as homeless because of that definition, the support system is now coming up to help her out with some social workers. So we're excited about that. The other one is, I knew you would be. I knew you would be. Okay. I told you we had a plan. We had a plan. So that's really exciting to see that, I think about 3 years ago in that world of students and families experience homelessness, we were putting some money aside for after-school tutoring. Then we invested into a coordinator, and now we're meeting students where they're at, and now we're going to be able to do some case management. Really exciting. 243 staff members have been trained in the youth mental health first aid training. And then we've had, with our relationship with Burrell Behavior Health and our site-based clinicians who come in to buildings, we had 300 referrals to those site-based clinicians. One of the things Rhonda's really proud of is that this 5-tier continuum, she has a kind of a pyramid of intervention, and I'll show you that in just a moment. The other piece that they've added this year that they're really excited about is the Signs of Suicide curriculum that will be implemented in 9th grade health classes. And we hosted a community forum last year, and that's definitely a concern for our community, and I'm really glad to see the quick responsive reaction of our mental health and counseling services. The other one is this Wednesdays Connect. This is a big deal, and Lynn from our homeless coordinator has linked arms, and I want to make sure I get some of these people right. The Dream Center, One Door, Missouri Career Center, Jordan Valley Community Health, Legal Services, Housing Authority of Springfield, Burrell, Mercy, Department of Social Services, OCAC, Habitat for Humanity, lots of partners at the table. She has been the spearhead of this thing, holding these people together for 2 Wednesdays a month to provide one-stop shop services for people experiencing homelessness. So I'm really excited about that to report to you tonight and what that's going to be in the future.
Maybe I missed it, but of course, one-stop shop is the model, best practice model right now. So what do you mean by that? Are we talking about them meeting about doing it, or are they literally doing it? And if so, my question is where?
I believe they're meeting at the Dream Center, and it'll be 2 Wednesdays a month, and it will be actually providing direct services to folks who are in that situation.
And this is my ignorance. Where is the Dream Center?
The Dream Center is located on Atlantic Street.
It's the former Hamlin Baptist Church.
There you go.
Good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Next steps for us in this particular piece is to really expand partnerships. We've added a couple of things here. We've added full-time elementary counselors a year ago. We added a program counseling person this year to help with Rhonda, and we expect to expand those partnerships and link more students and families to services. And then also our next step is to hire full-time social workers. let me show you just a little bit about this. This is the Greene County. This is really part of CPOs, and this is the mental health first aid. That we've had about 6,900, I believe they're referrals for services for students in the whole county. So I just wanted to point out that there's so many people being linked through this grant opportunity to services. And then lastly, this is really the pyramid that they've talked about. This is the 2 layers would be kind of the counseling services, and you can see over to the left how that kind of coordinates to some of the data that in tiers 1 and 2 of the pyramid, you will see almost 30,000 student contacts with students, with school counselors. So these are every day I'm dealing with something in a situation with school and life. And then really tier 3 is that site-based clinician, and that would be that person from Burrell who would come and help us, and they're providing 2,500 individual therapy sessions that served a little over 300 students this last year. So I wanted you to see that they do have a model that they're trying to work from to link kids and try to assess where they're at and then link them to services. And then this is when I look at for suspensions. So any of this mental health, any of the impact for health and hygiene, making a difference in number of students who did not receive an ISS or an OS discipline issue. So 84% of our students this last year did not receive an ISS or OSS. So that's 20,000 students. Probably not quite that many, but it's quite a few students in that range that would have not, doesn't mean they didn't have a discipline issue or phone violation or something of that nature, but they weren't in ISS or OSS. When you look at the 15% who were, it was 9% who were in ISS. So what I'm trying to do is see if any of these linked up services can reduce the number of discipline issues in our schools. What I do notice when I look at that data is an increase in elementary. And that's where this work is, where I think starts to need to target a little bit. And that's where Stephanie Davison, where we just approved behavior supports in this last budget, where Stephanie will come in and help us do a pyramid of intervention like you just saw for counseling, and help us get a clean language across the district and strategies that can be used across the district. She'll be in charge of school psychs, behavior techs, who are people out working with students, and at our elementary have behavior interventionists, and she's going to be providing those trainings and helping us create a system of intervention around behavior support. So,
Mike, sort of in the spirit of the appointment versus student served,
yeah.
How many suspensions were there? If roughly 15% of students were not suspended, how many
a raw number
unduplicated?
I have that, and I don't have it with me tonight, but I'll find out for you. I have that. Dr. Joman and I were just looking at it this last week. I just don't. He's way better than numbers than I am. You got that in your head?
I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say it. I can see the graph, but I can't see
I do. I can too.
There's a few different cells on it. So.
I'll find out for you.
Would you back up just a minute? So you were talking about Stephanie Davis. So what is her title?
She's still Assistant Director of Special Education, but she's going to be having an active role in behavior supports for the school district.
And the new position that
we did a coordinator for Great Circle, who will do some of the day-to-day operations and the management of Great Circle, freeing up Stephanie's expertise to help us with the district.
So that was one of our new.
Yep, that was one new additions.
Right. Sounds like it's going to be extremely helpful.
We have, when you see the trend, and Dr. Joe and I were looking at it, when you see the increase in elementary, and you start to think, we had not been in a system where you've had more discipline issues at the elementary versus the high school. And we're in that moment, and we have to address the elementary school and figure out behavior supports in that area.
Just the non-suspended, looks like the attendance graph. It's very highly correlated. Yeah.
And then this is just kind of a recap of some of the things we've talked about, but in school safety, I'll be really asking about training and drills. That's where I'm going to be focusing this attention. I'm actually meeting with this team next week to just kind of start plotting this out for this next year. Health and hygiene, we're going to talk about faith partners and just continue that conversation with Marty and streamlining, coordinating our efforts for donations and those partners. And in mental health, we're going to look at expanding partnerships and analyzing that data a little bit more so that we can hopefully address the issue happening at the elementary schools. That's your goal one report, end of the year report. So, Thank you for your
Excellent.
attention.
Thank you.
Accompanied with your goal one, you also have a full PDF written version in your board docs also.
Do you have something,
I
Bruce?
just appreciate the numbers because I remember this person that comes every year in December and says we don't sing Christmas carols, which bothers me because we do the work, we do sing Christmas carols. But whether we did, we're doing what those Christmas carols tell us to do, which is when people are hungry and thirsty. And we, that's the combined we, that's the school district and the faith community and our other services, and we're doing the work we should be doing. So some people are missing the point. And these numbers show that that's what we need to be doing. And the sad part is that there are so many that need those services that we're probably still, not probably, we are missing some that we still continue to need to do. But if we weren't doing this work and the 83, I wonder what that number would be.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't imagine what that number would be if we all weren't doing this work, seeing the need, and once we see the need, somebody marches out and tries to see that it's filled.
Yeah.
And our community tries to do that. So I think this is an important data there is important for any of us. I don't think this is seeing communities through a different lens that Francine talked about. This is part of a community that some don't know exists here, that's here every day, and we're trying to meet those needs. So I think this is fantastic.
Great.
Numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to commend you on, Mike, was just the courage to show the data that doesn't necessarily say that we're winning. You know, that this is a long fight, and that and not to rush to judgment to say, well, this isn't working. We need to do something else. I think if it my sense is that one of the reasons why the number may not be improved is there's just more to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's other to do, there's just more to do. There may, when I say there's not other to do, it's not like we need to stop doing what we're doing, do other things. The whole idea of bringing people together in the community and making it more than just the school's responsibility to address is going to make our community that much stronger. I appreciate the pursuit of justice in this. This is hard work, and I'm so grateful that we've got people who are called to do this work, doing it. It's remarkable.
And I think it's important work whether or not attendance goes up. I mean, it will be good if attendance does, but I really like, Tim, your phrase, the pursuit of justice. That in and of itself justifies the work.
Justice is the one thing you should always find, but I echo that point. It was a little demoralizing to see how expansive this problem, and I know the world is harder than it used to be, so that's not surprising, but I thought the same thing when I saw that slide. I don't really care if we move those numbers. Hungry kids can't learn well, and the rest of the story to people whose teeth hurt. You know, there's so much about this that's important. I'm less interested in seeing the numbers. It's sort of like anything you shine a light on gets worse before it gets better. So give yourself time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like you're learning as you go. You know, the point that you and John were looking at that graph and that the elementaries, it starts to say, okay, how can we focus our efforts? So it's good to know.
Well, I've worked in other systems, right? So to have the courage as a board to say, hey, we're going to put some resource towards behavior supports, and we're going to put resources towards mental health, and we've put resources. You have a excellent health staff in every building. I mean, that is courage and leadership. It's not replicated in many places.
And the metrics we tossed out there, those are just the ones the state cares about, right? I We
Right,
just
that's
put them
right.
out there because those are APR related, and they're important for us to watch, and we care about them too. But they're not directly correlated to these things.
That's
But
right.
we want to see them move. We hope that these things, but to your point, there's more work. So we'll keep pushing.
And another thing, though we are focused on the children tonight, and that's important, I see it as support for teachers as well, that we give that support because they cannot teach the others if there's two of them that are being so distracting that that's taking all of their time. So to me, this is support for not just the students and what's justice, but it's bigger than that because it supports the system and the people who are doing the hard work, which is the teachers.
Yeah, and I would echo, not about the kids, but I also think that we have a responsibility to take care of 4,000 employees as well. So I guess I would just like to say thank you for ensuring that that we have all kind of emergency operation plans. I mean, I hope our employees feel safe and that we have directed resources for that. And even so far as all the people trained in CPR and first aid, I mean, if something's going to happen to me, I want to be at one of our schools, you know? I mean, there's going to be plenty of people around, but I do think we have a responsibility to take care of our staff and the people who are in our buildings as well to make sure that they're safe.
AED deployment is a
Yeah,
prime
I mean,
example.
that's
That's
huge.
much more likely to, say, one of our staff members or a visitor to campus
Yes.
than it is kid, to be honest.
Yes.
But it's our whole community.
That's
We
right.
do this for
These are community buildings.
Rush me to a school.
Just the reality of
I'm
it.
going to still pick hospital, but you guys do that. Or you guys want to go on
They
this.
got a crash cart
That
over
would
there.
have me.
Yeah.
I'm telling
I
Darren
was
that
one of
you
those
pick
staff
school.
members trained in CPR. You probably would not have wanted me.
Well, I'm going to finish the way I started, and I'm going to thank Dr. Harold for his leadership, Jean, Rhonda, and Phyllis and Marty, who do this work every day. They do a great job, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we are going to move on to report from administration, and we're going to start with a short superintendent update.
Yep, just a few things. In case you hadn't heard, we start school here in just a few days. So,
Sorry.
As
Sorry.
there are a few parents excited.
Bring it.
They want us to do an intercession between Explore and the start of school, but we're not going to do that. So, we've got 25,000 kids coming back on August 16th. In preparation for that, we've been doing all the work that it takes to get ready. So all of the operations teams working incredibly hard to make sure facilities are ready, as well as welcoming back all of our educators. So 150 is the roundabout number of new educators that joined our system, and they were part of the kickoff last week. And Mr. Lee was part of our leadership kickoff also, and had our leadership team together last week. We also have many other learning events that are part of our preparation. Tomorrow is our Ignite kickoff that will happen at Kickapoo for year 3 schools. So if you're around in the morning, you'll see somewhere between 800 and 1,000 teachers together learning tomorrow. That will be the place to be. Excited about that. We also have SBS Now, which is on Friday, which is all of our teachers as they're welcome back, some of their beginning of the year professional development. That will be at campuses all across our community. We have Activate SBS on Monday at Juanita K, which is the first time that we've brought together all of our certified educators in quite some number of years. We're looking forward to that, kick off our celebration to 150 years of Springfield Public Schools with all of them, and also do some recognition of service for some that have been with us for a long time. So we'll have all the certificated employees there as part of that, and some community leaders, and I know the board is likely to be represented. So appreciate you being a part of that. We also hosted Good Morning Springfield at Central. I know several of you were able to be there and celebrated again the 150th birthday, and 300 plus in attendance, plus 600 online as we push that out online live for the first time, I think, this year. In addition, one other, we had our first Launch and Learn as we move forward with the launch program. We hosted a luncheon for the 20 plus school districts that are part of that, and 50 people in the room right next door last week, and excited to hear all that's possible, and they're excited about the possibilities of the learning. So we're excited that that is moving forward. Last things, that are important. Know that we're still targeting the September study session for feedback on the community survey. It is in the field on the voter survey right now, so if you're answering your phone, you see an odd number, please pick it up, because it is, that goes for everybody in the room. That's people trying to get feedback from voters in our community. And then we also have, MSBA, in case you're registered for the fall conference, we did have 3 Springfield sessions accepted. So we'll be reaching out for board partnership on those. One on leadership development, one on safety and the programming, a lot about what you heard tonight, and then one on our PAT grant, early childhood program. So look forward to sharing those. October meeting. So we'll be sharing some best practices as well as learning as part of that. And I'll shift straight to, unless you have any questions on superintendent's update, shift straight to legislative update. It's quasi-legislative. We have new state board members on the State Board of Education. Well, it's not purely legislative, it is a function of our executive branch. So one, good news is one from Springfield area. So if you have that person, reach out. And Melissa Gelner, who works with us in some partnerships with Chocolate University, our Explore program. She's been a good partner through those, and we've already reached out and looking for an opportunity to follow up in some future conversations. So it's good to have a representative from our own community on the state board. So 2 others were appointed, one since backed out, and we'll see. And then we still have, so we have 1 opening that from the back out, and then we have 1 other person that has an expired term. That so we expect 2 more appointees in the near future. So other than that, legislatively, it's relatively quiet on the education front. I think even at the federal level, people have went home for a little bit, and at the state level, don't know of any more sessions coming up at this point, so we're still in limbo, watching finances and budget pieces, and we'll get the school year started and prepare for next session. Jim. So we'll do our platform in the fall, and Jerry's got an engagement process that he's wanting to work through, probably part of September, and that may be a little bit of retreat topic also, likely in October, but legislative platform coming soon, and the session starts in January. That's it.
That's great, thank you. So we are at,
Nope.
okay, so we're on Board of Education discussion. Is there anyone who has some general comments outside of the ones that we made as we went along? Denise does.
Of course.
That's fine.
Do you want to talk about summer school graduation? Well, you talk about it.
No.
Yes.
I don't want, Jean made me cry already.
Yeah, well, you can talk about summer
You
school.
did. You
I was
did.
going to talk about, I attended the MSBA Board of Directors meeting in Columbia a couple of weekends ago, and lots of 2 full days of meetings, or almost 2 full days of meetings. And 2 things that I came away with is that we were once again cautioned on spending the formula dollars until we have it in our bank account. And not that anyone believes that it's not going to happen, but just to be very cautious, don't start spending your money before you have it. And the second thing was, there's just such an incredible focus and discussion on encouraging board members throughout the state to keep our focus on students and children. And I think the discussion was in such a highly charged political world we live in, that's very, very important for board members to remain apolitical and to keep that focus on kids and students. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us that we always keep our focus on the students and kids. So anyway, two things I brought back, and there's, I think it's most important to talk about.
You're not going to talk about graduation?
I thought you were.
I said no.
Okay.
You do it.
So, if you'll remember several months ago when the student came to share with us her, Nikki, when she came and talked to us about that at that time, she hoped that in 3 or 5 months she'd be walking across that stage. She did, and her family was there to support her, as well as her little one and her boyfriend. And she was, I don't know what the correct term is, so proud. And her family was so proud of her, and it was a great time for Jill and I to have a chance to hand her that diploma. And as she came across the stage, Jill reaches her arms out, and Nikki, and they embraced, and it was just so awesome because I think I saw later on a tweet that someone said, now that's the way to greet a graduate.
And which made me think, am I supposed to do that like 800 at a time? I think I have it in me, but is that the plan?
No.
But she was a student that faced so many, and she's not alone. There are many students, and if you go to the Studi alternative school graduations that they have every quarter, some of the same stories, and there's so much going on in terms of meeting these kids where they are, and especially with our online learning, it's just, that makes it a pleasure to serve on this board when at other times we hear a lot of grumbling and grousing and complaining, and you, once again, just like they said, MSBA, keep your focus on those kids that are moving on. And little Nikki, when she got her diploma, said, I can't believe this is over. And Jill said, no, my friend, it's just the beginning.
Well played. Well done.
I did say it 3 times. No, it's the beginning.
Anyway, I'm done.
See, and I teared up.
I'm.
You're going to make me do it more?
No, actually, it may make me do that, and that's sort of not my style. Just
I
really
learned that out
quickly,
from people.
on the topic of always keeping our focus on kids, I would agree. I might disagree a little bit in terms, I think we need to be judiciously political when it's appropriate, but my point.
Explain that, Charles.
I think we need to pick our spots. I think we need to advocate when it's appropriate to advocate, but the point I was really going to make.
Advocate for students.
Yes, and when appropriate, if we have to square off occasionally, I'm okay doing that, as long as it's in the service of kids. But what I wanted to raise was, and that was sort of the red herring, it sort of rolled over there. I had a good conversation with Bridget Mars, the new head of the Mayor's Commission for Children, and we had a good conversation, and she's impressed with the efforts that the district is taking to sort of advance early childhood education. So.
Anyone else? All right. Let me read mine.
Upcoming meetings.
Upcoming meetings. I didn't, let me see if I wrote a note.
I listed several of events,
I
don't
don't
forget about those, but absent that, it's all back to school focused at this point. So engage where you can and be at the next board meeting. Can't make it to everything, I understand, so. But if you're looking for something to do, there's an open every night of every day, meet the teacher.
I went to an open house last night. Mike's going to one soon. There's lots of options, because our kids are going back to school. If you
We
can
heard.
celebrate that- Okay, and you can do some plus delta if you wish to do that. And we will be going into executive session to discuss real estate and personnel matters as provided in section 610.021 sub 2, 3, and 13 RSMO. Is there a motion that the board meets? Am I going too fast?
Nope.
You want to move
She's
before I
ready to
read my
move.
sentence? No, let me read the sentence. Do I hear a motion from Alina that the board meets in executive session to discuss real estate and personnel matters as provided in section 610.021 subs 2, 3, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri? Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Alina moves and Denise seconds, and can we all vote, please, if your computer's still on?
It's timed out.
It's moving fast tonight.